Welcome to Master Application Trainer. I'm Dana Thompson, your certified trainer, and today we have an exciting show for you. We're going to actually be discussing the iPad 2, what I call the mobile generation. In other words, with the iPad 2, you can basically do chores from your house. You can actually schedule appointments while you're away from your home and office. You can remotely log into computers. You can even turn off your lights and control your Fios TV, all with the iPad 2. So I'm going to discuss some of these features, but before I do, let me just show you what the iPad 2 looks like. The first item I have in my hand is the iPhone. And you will notice this particular iPhone is a smaller replica of the iPad. I believe what Steve Jobs had in mind was, as he began to develop the iPhone, and as he began to get older, he noticed he had to strain his eyes in order to see some of his appointments. So what he said is that I want to create, or I want to build a bigger iPhone. So he came up with the iPad, okay? So what I look at the iPad as is a bigger iPhone. That's all it basically is a bigger iPhone. This is the iPhone, this is the iPad. So today we're going to be discussing the iPad, and you'll notice that I have it inside of a case right now. What I'm going to do, I want to take it out of the case because I want to show you a couple of features about the iPad that I think is pertinent to you when you actually decide to purchase one, or if you want to know about the iPad itself. Now, as I remove it from the case, you'll notice that one of the advantages that's being stated about the iPad is its lightness. Look how thin it is. When you compare the iPad size with an iPhone, it's even thinner than an iPhone. One of the things I love about the iPad 2, that if you're an iPad user, in other words, if you have the iPad 1, that's different, is the color scheme. The iPad 2 comes in two colors. You can actually purchase this in black, or you can purchase this in white, okay? Right now, you'll notice that I have the black model. The colors sort of surround the border of your iPad. Now, since I have the iPad out of the case, one of the things I want to show you here is that you will notice that at the very top of your iPad is the power button. I'm going to click on the power button, and when I do, that's what actually turns your iPad on and off. So if your iPad is on, and if you want to put it in sleep mode, you just hit that power button one time, and it will turn it off. Hit it again, it will turn it on. Now, let's say, for instance, you want to permanently turn it off because you want to reserve your battery. Notice what happens when I actually hold down the button for at least 5 seconds. It will come up with this screen, which basically says at the top here, slide this bar to power off. So if I slide this bar, what it will do is shut down the iPad. I don't want to turn it off right now, so what I'm going to do is cancel. And you notice it goes back to the original screen. Now, one of the things I want to point out about the iPad 2 that the iPad 1 does not have is at the very bottom of the iPad, you have what is called a USB connector and power connector. Let me get my wire to power connector so that you can see how you charge your iPad 2. If you plug in this little adapter into your iPad 2, you can charge your iPad by plugging it into the computer because it has a regular USB port, or you can charge your iPad by plugging this USB. It comes with a little power adapter that you can plug it into that goes into your regular 120 volt socket, and that will charge the iPad as well. But if you're wondering at the very bottom what this connector is for, that's for power. And remember, when you buy or purchase your iPad, it should come with your power cord. Now, that cord also can be used with the iPod. Anything with a USB device that has music on it, you can actually transfer the music from that device, such as an iPod, to your iPad by using that same cable. Now, let me just show you here. I know that, this is pretty thin, so you can't see it, but I want you to notice that there is a button at the very top on the side, and this button is for silencing your iPad. So in other words, if you say, for instance, when you receive appointments and you hear a bell, ding, and all of a sudden you're in a meeting and you don't want to hear that bell anymore because you don't want people to know when you've had a message to arrive, whether it was a text message or whether it was an email message, the only thing you would have to do is to push this button down and it will put your iPad on silent mode. Right underneath the button, you have a volume switch, which controls the volume up and down. So that way, if I want to play music, you'll notice what I'm going to do here. I'm going to just slide to unlock my iPad. I have a security code on my iPad. I'm going to show you how you can put a security code on your iPad here in a second. And I'm going to hold it up so you can see what my password is. I wouldn't want to give my password to those who are watching, or it wouldn't be that secure, right? And once I punch in the password, you'll see a bunch of applications come up. Now, I'm going to show you a closer view of this in a second, but for now, what I want you to do is I want you to see how I'm just going to turn some music on very briefly. You probably can hear that, so I'm going to turn it up. I'm playing Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight. So as I hit the volume button, you notice the music gets a little louder. Right now, there's just congos playing, so you can't hear much. This song starts off kind of slow and soft, and it picks up as it goes along. So I'm going to let it play for a second here, because what I wanted you to see is that in the very back of your iPad, you have some little holes here. Those are your speakers. These little holes represent your speakers. Why am I bringing this out? Because one of the things I want you to be aware of is that if you were to buy any type of iPad cover, you got to make sure that the cover is not covering up the speakers, or you won't be able to hear your music. Okay, now Phil Collins is starting to sing, so I'm going to go ahead and turn him off. All right. You'll notice in my pad, at the very back of my pad, there's a section here at the very bottom that has holes. And that's for the speaker. So you have to make sure that when you purchase your iPad, and if you get a cover to go with your iPad, that it is properly aligned with your cover so that all the functionality, such as the speakers, your volume button, also there's a place at the very top of your iPad where you can plug in headset. You have to make sure that your cover can actually allow all that functionality to show so that it won't be non-functional when you actually need to use it. All right, so here it is. We have the iPad 2. I've showed you the power button. I've showed you the volume button. I've showed you how to silence, what we call the silence mode button. I showed you where you actually power it up for recharging, and also if you wanted to import music. And also I showed you on the very back where you actually have your speakers. And then at the very top, you once again have your headphone section. So that's all the basic functionality externally on the iPad. But that's not it. What actually gives the iPad the privilege of being one of the #1 used devices in the United States is the applications on the iPad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back in the case, because what I want to do is show you a couple of these applications and how they work and how you get applications on your iPad, what comes on your iPad, what doesn't come on your iPad, and so on. So as I put it back in this case, I'm going to move the charger and set it right here on the table. So hopefully we can get another view of this with the camera. There you go. Okay, so that's a basic setup for the iPad. What I want you to notice is that you have a big button here at the bottom. If you had your iPad turned like I do, horizontally, the button can be at your right or maybe at your left. It depends on which way you have your pad turned and what direction you have your cover actually in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this stylus off the top of my iPad. This is called a stylus pen, this little pin here. And what the stylus pen does is at the very bottom of the stylus pen, there's a piece of rubber. So if you wanted to open up something, let's say, for instance, in this particular case, I wanted to open up my mail. I would just hit it with my stylus pen, and here's my mail that's open. Okay? I can go back to see all of my different mail settings. Now, if I wanted to close this program, the big button right here at the bottom of your iPad, or if you're setting the way I'm setting with the iPad, it's on the right-hand side. I just hit this once, and that will take me out of any program that I launch open. Now, one of the things I want to mention to you is that there are two types of iPads. The first type of iPad is one which works with Wi-Fi, which means that if you have Comcast or Verizon Fios or any cable provider or what we call an ISP, Internet Service Provider at your home, what you can do is use your home network to control all the basic functionality of your iPad. Because most programs on your iPad and to download programs on your iPad is going to require an internet connection. So there's two types of iPads. I want to make sure I bring that to your attention. So if you go to the store and say, hey, I want an iPad 2, what you want to make sure of is that you get the iPad you want. So you have two types. You have one with Wi-Fi, which means if you have an internet connection, it will work. And then you have a feature with Wi-Fi and 3G telephone service. So in other words, if I just buy an iPhone or iPad with Wi-Fi, that means once I leave my home network, I will not have internet functionality. It only works in places where there's quote-unquote hotspots with Wi-Fi service, such as a Starbucks, or if you go to Panera Bread, any company that offers free Wi-Fi and gives you access to their network via Wi-Fi. So whether you're at a hotel, in one of these restaurants that offer this service, your iPad will have internet functionality. But let's say, for instance, you're in your car on the road and you need to get directions. Well, guess what? Your Wi-Fi iPad will not work. So this is where 3G come in. You can buy an iPad 2 with Wi-Fi plus 3G technology. And what 3G basically means is that you have phone service on your iPad. There's cellular data on your iPad. So therefore, you can use your iPad anywhere you go or anywhere that has a signal, okay? Now, my model, as you notice here, I'm going to go back to the iPad. It says here Verizon 3G because I have the cellular service with my iPad, which means it should work anywhere I go, okay? At the very top of the iPad, it also lists the time, and I have turned on my battery life. Right now, I'm at 90%, so I should be good as far as my battery life. Now, you'll notice my iPad is pretty neat. It doesn't come like this. I'm going to show you how to make these folders, is what we call folders. As you notice, my folders, I not only made these folders, but also they're in alphabetical order. The first folder I have is called audio. Now, I'm going to use my stylus, and I'm going to hit that audio folder. And notice that it opens up and shows me all of my audio programs. Now, if I want to close that, I just hit the big button on the side of my iPad, and that will close that folder. Now, if I didn't want to use a stylus, the stylus is only used for the explicit purpose of making sure that I don't put a lot of marks and smears on the glass of my iPad 2. Even though it's very useful if you want to use your hands, it's very useful. You can actually slide pages, you can open up programs with your fingers, you can actually enlarge your screen and make your screen smaller with your fingers. And sometimes when I'm reading, I like to use my fingers. I'm going to show you an example of that. I'm going to open up my folder called Books, and in my folders called Books, I have Kindle. So I'm going to use my finger and point to Kindle, and notice how now my iPad is opening up Kindle. And these are all the books I've downloaded. I have a book here that's basically called Family Wealth. I'm going to click on that book called Family Wealth. And you'll notice here now, if I actually put my finger on a word, that it gives me the ability to highlight the word, to make a note of the word. And also, notice I can even click share and share this particular word in this book with friends on Twitter or Facebook. Now, not just a word. If I want to share a whole paragraph in this book, I have the ability to do this. So this is one of the main reasons why people prefer to use the iPad, is because it is a wonderful tool for you to be able to read a book, but not only read a book. Notice if I want to scroll to my next page, the only thing I have to do is scroll my finger across the screen and it turns the pages. Just by taking my finger and boom, it turns the pages, okay? Notice also I can not only select words, but I can go back to the table of contents by just hitting the screen one time. And notice at the very bottom here, I have a book right here that's called the table of contents. So when I hit that, it brings up all of my different choices. It asks me, where do you want to go? Do you want to go to the cover of your book? Do you want to go to the table of contents? Do you want to go to the beginning? Do you want to go to a particular location in your book? Or if I've been making notes in my book, because you do have the ability to type notes in your book, you can do that as well. Or if you want to see certain highlights, you can use different highlighters to highlight different sections of your book. Notice that I can go to any of those sections. So this is one of the main reasons why people actually get the iPad, is so that they can do reading and also electronically keep up with a number of books on their iPad. I'm going to click on the table of contents and notice how it opens up the table of contents. Chapter 1 is family practices. Chapter 2, a family mission statement. Notice chapter 3 is called ritual. And chapter 4 is the family balance sheet and family income statement. So if I wanted to jump to chapter 4, I'll just click that link and it takes me straight to chapter 4. Now notice that for some reason, right here at the very beginning of the paragraph, highlighted is the family balance sheet and family income statement. If I wanted to highlight the word balance and make a note, notice how I have now the ability to type my own note. So I'm going to just type in Thompson as a note, because once you get into an area where you can type something, it automatically brings up an electronic keyboard, which you see at the bottom of the screen in this particular shot. So anywhere you go on your iPad where you have to type information, a screen will automatically appear like you see here, or what we call a keyboard screen at the very bottom of your iPad too. So let's go back here, and I want to show you a couple of things. If I didn't want the screen to show or display, I will hit the button, and notice here, this button allows me to minimize my keyboard so now that I can see my entire book. So this is just one of the ways in which I'm showing you how Kindle can be used. Another feature I love is that the search feature. If you're searching for a particular word in your particular book, I can type in a word. In this particular case, I typed in equity and hit search. And notice how it takes me to every place where equity is mentioned in the book. So therefore, if I hit where I want to go, it will take me to that particular place in the book. Isn't that wonderful? You can even go to Wikipedia and also to Google to look further for a word. Notice I clicked Google and it took the word equity, put it in Google for me, so now it looked up the word equity from Google. It automatically launched the browser, or what we call the internet, from the iPad. That's just how easy things correlate with the iPad 2. I'm going to go out of this program by hitting home, and notice when I go home, it takes me back out of the program. But remember, the very first lesson I taught you, how do you go back to the original screen? The big button on the right-hand side, if I click that one time, that closes Kindle, and it takes me back to my screen. When you purchase your iPad or iPad 2, at the very bottom of your screen, you have the mail button, which is for all of your email. That's what this button is here. As you notice in my mail, I have about 4 different mail accounts. I have a Verizon account. I have an account for a couple of businesses here. So here I have a number of different mail accounts that you can have limited numbers of mail accounts. So if you have 4 or 5 email accounts like Yahoo, if you have an email account for your company, you can actually list all of your mail here, and all of my mail come right here to my iPad. And because it's 3G, guess what? I can actually send email and receive email wherever I am. So if I'm on a bus, if I'm on a subway, I can literally respond to email as long as there's a signal, a phone signal. Now, when you purchase your iPad with 3G, it costs a little bit more, as you probably note. With Wi-Fi, you can purchase one of these iPad 2 for about $600, but if you actually purchase it with 3G, you're looking at about 800 and something bucks. So it's about $200 more for the Wi-Fi service and 3G service. If you get phone cellular service, you have an option between AT&T and Verizon. So in other words, you can actually pay month to month because I can use the phone cellular service by just putting in a credit card and my credit card information, which I'm going to take you to see in future shows. Or what I can do is basically, because I have a family plan of a cellular plan right now, just add this iPad as an additional phone, which I did in my plan. I have a family plan. I have 5 kids in college, so all of them need phones. So therefore, what I've done is one has moved on, and now she pays for her own phone. So I moved this service into her spot, and now I have everything still on one bill, but yet I'm using my iPad cellular service by having it incorporated with my cellular telephone bill. Now I'm going to go back out of Mail because I want to show you the other buttons here. I showed you the Mail button at the very bottom. Next to the Mail is Safari. Now Safari is a mail browser, just like the Internet Explorer. That's what Safari is. Safari is your browser. A browser allows you to view content on the internet. So whenever you want to view content on the internet, that's what a browser allows you to do. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the Safari, and you notice that it will take me straight out to the internet. Okay, so if I wanted to pull up anything in history here that I wanted to pull up, let's say for instance I want to go to Metro Access or Apple. I'm going to go to Apple in this case. You can see how fast this is, even though I'm on the cellular service. Notice how fast it's able to pull up your internet pages. So this works just like your browser at home. If you were using your internet at home, this is what you would use as far as a browser for your iPad. It's called Safari. Your browser at home on your home computer, you're probably using Google Chrome, or you're probably using Firefox or Internet Explorer. But just remember, the purpose of a browser is so that you can view HTML or content. What we call HTML is hypertext markup language, or content that's viewable for the internet. You need a browser in order to do that. Okay, so I'm going to close the browser. As you can see, once again, we have Mail at the bottom. I had the browser at the bottom. And then you have iTunes. I'm going to open up iTunes. This is one of the reasons why people fell in love with the iPad and also with the iPhone, is because you will notice that when I open this up, I'm going to go to Music. And what you will notice that happens is everything that's available out there on the market, you can buy here in iTunes. Okay? As you notice, if I scroll up, it has various artists already on here, some classic songs, some Christmas, you just type in the name of the artist up here and search. If I go up here, I'm going to type in, let's say for instance, Britney, and do a search. And once I type in Britney and do a search, you will see all of the movies, all of the albums, anything that has Britney in it, it will bring up in this search. So right here, there's a song called Somebody to Love by Brittany Murphy. The song is 99 cents. So when I actually click on the song, it's going to charge me 99 cents because when you first get your iPad, you have to set it up and you have to have credit card information if you plan on purchasing any of the applications. So that's how you can actually download music to your iPad or your iPhone. Now, I'm going to close this out because I just want to go over the basic 4 applications at the very bottom of your iPad for this session. We're going to continue, and I'm going to show you how to do some real neat stuff on your iPad 2 in our next broadcast. But for now, I just wanted to cover the basics and show you how to use the basic functionality of your iPad. We went to the Mail icon. We went to the Internet, what we call the browser. We also looked at iTunes. Now I'm going to go to Message, and you'll notice when I go to Message, this is how you can literally send text messages to anybody that's in your contact list. So I can send text messages with my iPad as well. So I'm going to click on the big button again so I can go back to my original screen. And as you notice, this is only one screen. You have a number of screens you can use with your iPad. So if I scroll over one, here's my other screen. Notice I only have 2 icons on my other screen. Now, one of the icons on my screen is called the App Store. Now, this is important because you have a lot of new applications here on your iPad 2. I'm going to click on the App Store, and the App Store will bring up the last search I did. And the last search I did, I was actually looking for a program dealing with budgets. And notice when I'm looking for a program dealing with budgets, it brought up about 2 or 3 different programs that have budget-oriented functions within them. Some of them are going to be free, like this Canadian Cuisine. This is free. Also, AutoBooks installation is free, so if I want to listen to books, that installation is free. Let me just show you how easy it is to install an application. Only thing you have to do is click on Install. Once you click on Install, it's going to ask you for a password. When you first set up your iPad, you will have to set it up by being assigned an Apple ID password, okay? That's something that the first thing it's going to ask you to do when you turn it on. It's going to ask you to set up the different configurations, and this is one of them. You will have to have an Apple ID password. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in my password here. I'm not worried about you seeing it because I do it so fast. I very seldom believe anybody can see it. And notice that once I type in my password, it begins to load the icon onto my iPad that I want to download, okay? So that's how you would actually load programs onto your iPad, by going to the application store, typing in search the name of the program that you want to actually download, and then download the program. Okay, look like we're out of time. Remember, we're going to cover extensively how these applications can help you from day to day and also in your work environment. I'm going to show you some real neat things. I mean, some really neat things that this iPad can do. I'm telling you, I can control most of my life through this iPad. That's why you have to have security, and that's why I'm going to show you how you can even wipe your iPad out if it's lost or stolen within a matter of minutes. So stay tuned for our next broadcast, and thank you for watching the Master Application Trainer. I'm Dana Thompson, and look forward to seeing you on our next broadcast.